Good morning, everyone. This is Ikechi Ukazu, your personal financial educator, and I'm here in downtown Houston as I wrapped up an interview with one of my amazing guests that I'm excited to show you. Her name is Patience Tanko, and she's a wealth and financial strategist. I want you to like, follow, and share with your friends because you want people to see this video. This woman is full of heart, full of passion, and she's ready to make a difference. She's also a woman of God and a powerful speaker. So, without further ado, Patience Tanko.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here. We've been talking about this. Actually, we met 2 years ago, right? But then, I mean, of course, I think we stayed connected, and I think I saw your TikTok and just how you started talking about finances. It was amazing. And before we go forward, I want to make sure. Can you talk quickly about your organization, your company?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my name is Patience Tanko, and I'm the founder of Wealth Builder Systems. I am a financial and wealth strategist, and one of the things I really enjoy doing is helping people with their finances. I want to help you from that place you are to take you
Hmm.
to where you need to be financially so you can live life on your terms and pursue God's purpose for you. So, basically, that's what we do.
I mean, and as you can tell, she is an amazing speaker. So, and I really feel we talked about God. We talked about God's purpose. I really feel like God is doing something to unite people like yourself and myself to help his people with what he's given them. There's many ways we can go in this conversation, but I do want to start with your story. You know, how you got started with financial services and what made you be drawn to that. Was it something that happened in your life? Tell me a little about your story.
Absolutely. So, I grew up in a household where both my parents were bankers. So, I
Mm,
kind of
mm,
had an idea of how money worked,
mm,
but not so well.
mm,
And I was intrigued by businesses growing up.
mm,
I
mm,
enjoyed seeing people do business.
mm,
So, at a very young age, I started to do business as well.
mm,
But I didn't understand the concept. So, I would make money and spend it.
mm,
And once I spend it, I come back and make money
mm,
again. So I understood how to multiply money,
mm,
but I had no idea about how to really preserve that money or
mm,
how to grow it,
mm,
you know. And then I became an adult and started to understand some of these things. And then
mm.
coming to America
Right.
again, as
When did you come to America?
actually just a little under 7 years, interestingly.
Okay.
Yep.
She's a very interesting person. Please continue. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming here, I was so excited.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to work for anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like, how do I build something for myself?
Mm-hmm.
You know, And so I started to do a couple of businesses. I registered my first company,
Mm-hmm.
started working on that. And I'm like, you know what? The next thing I want to do is start a feminine care brand,
Mm.
which I started. It cost me a lot of money then.
Mm-hmm.
And I used so much of almost all my savings. And I had a little balance to
Mm-hmm.
complete that. And I'm like, okay, I have all these credit cards that I'm not using. I'm going to
Right.
swipe them and just pay for some of those things.
We've all
So
been
that
there.
was
Yeah.
how I got
Yeah.
myself in debt,
Oh, okay.
you
Let's talk.
see?
Yeah, yeah.
So I got myself in debt, and it was a bit. It was a bit. It was like five figures of debt. But I like to say, and it doesn't make it any different. I didn't spend it on myself like
You
I
did it for
wanted
the
to start,
business.
yeah, a
Right, right,
business.
right, right.
But again, not every business will take off well.
Right.
So there's some things that we
Mm.
need to think about before we jump into. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't really do that. It was like, okay, people are doing business. I have to find one
Right,
and I didn't
right,
sit with God on that,
right.
you know.
Mm, mm.
And so I started that business. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't turn out the way I thought it was gonna turn out. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was gonna make so much money. And here I was with so much debt.
Mm.
And so the next thing was, how do I clear up this debt? Because I have products sitting that I've not been able to sell,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
products of over six figures
Wow.
just sitting in my
Wow.
garage.
Wow.
And now I have
Wow.
some debt,
Right,
you
right,
know?
right,
So
right.
I started to study, okay, how does money really work? How can I get out of debt? Because I know that there's no way you can create wealth
Mm-hmm.
while being in debt.
Mm.
And that's what I
Interesting.
wanted for
Mm-hmm.
myself and my
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I eliminate debt?
Mm-hmm.
Then I got into finances. I started to
Mm.
study, I started to read, I took courses, I got certified.
What did you start reading? What was
So I started to read books.
it? Okay,
You know
which
how they say, if you want to hide something from a black man, you put it in a book.
well, they haven't hidden it.
You
Anyways, yeah, yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
And so I got Money Makeover. I started
Mm-hmm.
to read that
Dave
book,
Ramsey,
Dave
right, right, right,
Ramsey.
right, right.
Yeah, I read some books by Tony Robbins as well.
Which is So related.
Yep.
Please continue.
And
Go ahead.
then Rich Dad Poor Dad as well
Yeah.
was a book I read as well. So I read a couple of books just trying to understand how does this thing work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became certified as a financial coach. So
Mm.
going through that whole process,
Mm-hmm.
because I am I'm Maxwell certified.
Mm-hmm.
So but that didn't really help me with the finance aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go get something else. So that opened my eyes and I'm like, okay, in the course of that, I realized that there's so many people just like me
Mm.
that make decisions that had put them in a hole and they're not sure of how to go out.
Right.
And not everybody would sit down and read these books. Not everybody would get a course that will
Mm-hmm.
teach them how to become debt free. There's a lot of information out there
Mm-hmm.
that might not really get us to where we want to get to.
There's a lot of misinformation.
Yes, sir. So that's how I got
Right.
into the financial industry.
Okay.
And then I became a certified coach
Mm-hmm.
and understood that, okay, I have to help people that are in the same situation
Right.
like me.
Right. And one of the most beautiful things about your journey is, I mean, you even said it at the very beginning when you introduced yourself, was having God and helping people with their purpose that they
Mhm.
have in God. I want to talk about how God has been in your journey throughout the way, especially with some of the dark times. We know that life is not, everyone posts their highlight reels
Mhm.
on Instagram.
Mhm.
But no one wants to talk about when they're inside that room alone, and
True.
it's, I don't know, it's 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and these, and you're trying to see how you can make something happen. Can you talk about how God met you in some of those moments and how He got you to continue on to bring this into fruition?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it's interesting you asked that. While I
Mm.
had all this debt and all these products, I was exhausted. I was
Mm.
like, God, where do I go from here? And I started to pray.
Amen.
I went back to him. I'm like, okay, what's the blueprint? Something
Mm.
has to give,
Yeah.
you know? And I remembered that year, it was towards the end of the year, and I started to pray. I
Mm-hmm.
started to fast. I'm like, God, you have to show me a way out of this whole thing
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
can't get myself out. Here I am in debt, and I'm one of the statistics that lives paycheck to paycheck right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like at the end of every month, I'm trying to calculate the bills. Will
Right.
everything get
Right.
through?
Right. Right.
And knowing
Right.
that I have something sitting. So at first, I was like, God, help me dispose these products and get my money back. But
Mm-hmm.
it now shifted. I'm like, okay, God, what do I need to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's how He led me to this whole financial thing.
Right.
You see, the course I took, he led me to that course. It's like, you want to learn about this concept.
Right. And this is amazing, right? Because I mean, I think Proverbs has a verse that says, with all you're getting, get wisdom. With all you're
Yes.
seeking, seek wisdom.
True.
And what I believe, and you can just let me know what you think about this, is that when we start to ask God for wisdom, He'll let us know that it's right. He'll let us know where to look and where to find it and where to find these opportunities. And when I started praying even about this financial practice, your name was one of the first ones that popped up,
Wow.
you know, and I haven't seen your name in 2 years, in so much as I've seen, I think maybe on Facebook or something like that. But when I started praying, that's when God started showing opportunities. So
Mm.
can you tell me how we started opening your eyes to different places where you can find wisdom, and what that process was like? Perhaps even reading the Dave Ramsey book. Talk about that process.
So, like I said, I started reading, and in the course of, you know how
Hmm.
you have things in front of you and you never see it?
That's exactly what we're talking about. Can we? Okay, let's back. So there's of course the verse: "Ask and you shall receive;
Matthew
seek and
7
you shall
7.
find; knock and the door shall be open." And when we ask for wisdom, the Lord is able to open our eyes. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how we have eyes, but we don't see certain things in front of
Mm,
us.
yeah.
So that was what it was before then. But that's how you know that God is leading and showing you because I
Yeah.
started to see things.
Mm,
I would go online and something will pop up.
yep.
And then
That.
all of a sudden I would click on it and see, like, oh, that's the information that I need.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
You know,
That's
and
it.
sometimes you're thinking, I've been through this before, how come I never saw this? How
Yeah.
come it's just,
Exactly.
but it's
That's how
just
He
like
does it.
God is the one leading you here, and that's how you, so we have eyes but we don't see, you
and
know.
that's why Jesus says, yeah, They have yeah, their eyes, but they can't see. They have
Yeah,
ears, but they cannot
they
hear.
cannot hear.
So you start, and I believe
And
we
sorry to
go,
cut,
go,
there's a scripture that
yeah.
talks about seeing men like trees. When he healed the guy and he said, "What can you see?" And he said, "I see men like trees."
Mm,
Sometimes, if God doesn't open your eyes to certain things, all you will see are trees.
mm-hmm.
You're not gonna see, you're not gonna see the gold in that thing. Even
Right,
when we're going through things,
right.
we feel this is here to kill me. This is gonna
Mm,
drown me.
mm,
But you don't know that it's a journey that God is taking you through.
mm,
He just
mm.
wants you to stay the course and stay
That's
with
so
Him.
good. That's so good.
You
That's so
know,
good. And of course, you want to go to I think Romans 12. Be transformed. Okay,
but
and
yep,
I'm gonna because I know
yep,
you're also a preacher as well. I'm gonna take this one if we can because I know we're both preachers.
absolutely.
Yeah, be transformed by the renewing of your mind
Mm-hmm.
and be able to discern what is a good and acceptable, perfect will of God. And that renewing of the mind is where I think what we're able to do and how we do that. And we can go so many ways with this. First, we have to make sure we spend time with the Lord. And we're talking about finances, but really, I think we're talking about wealth. And we're going to get to maybe some practical steps and things like that. But I want to make sure we open it up. I think how we're able to determine which is the right step is first of all spending time with the Lord, spending time with the Word, with prayer, and then I think for me, let me know how it happens with you. I think something when I'm able to spend time with the Lord and know what that feels to be in His presence. Sometimes I can feel like my spirit is able to say, okay, that feels like something God would want me to do, and He directs me in that path. But let me know how that works for you.
Yeah, it's the same thing when we spend time with Him and we stay with Him.
Yes.
He begins to press things in your spirit. He begins to talk to you because
Mm-hmm.
He's always talking actually. But
Mm,
sometimes we're not able to hear because we haven't stayed with Him. But in the place of staying with Him and spending time with Him,
yes.
you begin to hear, you
Yes.
begin to see, you
Yes.
begin to perceive because you're now you
Hey,
stayed
Faye,
with Him.
are you a preacher? Are you a preacher?
Some people would say I
I
am,
mean,
but
can you guys hear this? Please, if you get a chance, if you're watching this, and I know people who are watching this, make sure you let her know what you think she's able to do by her story. Continue if you remember where you left. He presses something on your
yeah.
spirit. Yeah,
And like I said, He's always talking,
right.
but we're not hearing Him because we
Mm,
haven't stayed with Him.
mm-hmm.
So we don't even recognize His voice.
Right.
But now, just by staying with Him, spending time in His
Mm-hmm.
presence,
Mm-hmm.
you begin to recognize His voice.
Mm-hmm.
You begin to know that this is God speaking. This is what He's
Amen.
leading me
Amen.
to.
Amen.
This is where He's
Amen.
sending me to
Amen.
because we
Amen.
have stayed with Him. So for
Amen.
me, sometimes I just go back to Him, especially when I'm confused. I feel like there's a lot of noise in my head. I
Mm.
just go back to Him and I'm like, okay, Daddy, this is where we stop. I'm going to let go and I'm going to stay with you. And
Amen.
I know that you're going to tell me what to do.
Right, and this is interesting, and I don't want to be one of the people that tries to brag or anything like or say anything in a way that shines a light on what I'm doing. But I had this pressing on my spirit last night to have you heard the story of Martha and Mary, where where Martha, I believe it may be Martha, does all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and Mary just sits at the feet of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus rebukes her and says, "You're doing all these things, but what Mary's doing right now, sitting at my feet, she's going to get so much more." And so I think that sometimes, especially when we talk about confusion and being distracted and doing all of these things, God's saying, I want you to sit down, sit with me, and I'll let you know what you do. Learn from me. And then once you get out of my presence, I'll let you know exactly where to go. Any thoughts on that?
Yes.
Because I just did a little preach
You know
right
how
there.
how we get
Yeah,
carried
yeah,
away and we feel like, oh, time is not on my side, but think about it for a minute.
yeah.
Those things that we end up doing sometimes don't turn out well, right? And we're thinking if we spend time with God, we're going to be losing time. But guess what? If you spend time with God, you're going to be gaining time. Because as opposed to us going out there and trying things to figure out what works, once you spend time with Him, He tells you what's going to work. So you've bought back time by staying with Him, and you haven't just gotten back that time. You've had intimacy with Him. You see, so that time we're spending with Him, we're not losing time.
We're gaining
We're
time.
gaining
We're
time.
gaining
We're
time.
gaining insights. We're gaining revelations. He shows you the secret places. Okay,
Did y'all feel that? I felt it when she said it. Please continue. Yeah.
when you stay with Him, He shows you.
Right.
The Bible says, I'm going to come
Hmm.
back to what we're talking
Okay,
about. He
please.
gives us the power
Hmm.
to get well. How do you think He's going to do that?
Please. The secret is being in that secret place. This is so good. And there's a verse that rings true in my spirit right now, which is My God, and I feel this in my spirit, my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches and glory.
Hmm.
Do we know how abundant our God is, who owns the skies, who owns the universe? And he says, I know I can give that to you,
Hmm.
but I need you
Hmm.
to I need you to spend time with me so you know how to use it. And especially, I think in this culture that we're after all these blessings and trying to get the bag and all these things, that you can gain the whole world and lose your
Oh
soul.
yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
I want to get to some practical application.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the things you're seeing with your clients right now, as far as what they need to do with their finances? What kind of trends are you seeing?
So one of the big things that has crept into our community is
Hmm.
living a life of lies. Okay, I'm just gonna say it the way it is. We're really concerned about what people think about us, how they feel about us. We're concerned about how they perceive us, how they perceive our family. And at the end of the day, those things don't matter. No, they don't. Because when the chips are down, those people are not gonna come to you.
Hmm.
And that's what I see with my clients. And that's one of the things we work on to change their outlook and their perception.
Hmm.
Dave Ramsey usually says something. You want to live like nobody right now so that you can
Live
live
like no one else. Live like no one else now, so you can live
like
like
no
no
one
one else.
else.
And that takes and there's so many ways you can take that quote as far as living a disciplined life, but really what it is living by a set of. I think even the word discipline has a very negative connotation. Really, it is living by a certain set of principles.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps
Mm-hmm.
I know with Dave Ramsey, it's making sure you have your baby steps first, and then you can eliminate debt, and then get into okay. And then let's talk about some of those things. How are you helping these clients live like no one else now, so they can live like no one else in the future?
So the first thing I do with clients is I want to have a review of where you are.
Yeah.
Because guess what? People lie. We lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves, we lie to people. We want people to think that we got it all figured out, but we
We
don't.
don't.
So the first thing we want to do is we want to sit down and tell ourselves the truth. I had some clients
This is
yesterday. I had a
good.
Zoom with them. It was beautiful, and one of them was like, everything you've said resonates so much with me. I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to review everything for me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing we want to do.
Right.
We want to review your current situation.
Right.
Some people have money traumas, and the truth is they haven't sat down to ever look at their statements. They don't
Mm.
even have an idea of what's going on with their finances. All they know is they're working, they're paying bills, and they're doing all kinds of stuff, but they got no idea.
And this is very interesting here because I know that even having a look at the and I've had a client too with the same thing. It's almost like there's a fear to
Yeah,
look at. What do you feel that is?
it's a trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Just,
it's it's a money trauma. Okay, you find people have panic attacks when they have to look at their statements, when they have to look at the account balance. They cannot bring themselves to doing that. And if you're watching and you're like, oh, I feel that way, I never want to look at my statements, or I have bills that once they come in the mail, I pick the envelopes and I just put them on the side. I never want to open them because I don't want to see what's in there. It's okay. It's because you're suffering from a money trauma, and you might not have realized it, but that's something that you probably got from childhood. It was handed over to you, or you got that from the emotional reactions you saw growing up,
mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
people around you
Mm-hmm.
reacted to
Mm-hmm.
money, the
Mm-hmm.
things they said to your subconscious mind that has stayed there for so long.
Jesus.
And so now you're an adult, but you're really scared because you're feeling in your mind, I might fail financially. Oh, I might not ever be able to get out of debt. So I don't even want to face it. But the truth is, we need to sit down and recondition your mind and have you deal with these things.
Right.
Because should I say something?
Say it. Say
It's
it.
never going to go away. So you shying away from it and
Right.
staying away from
Right. Right.
it
Right. Right. Right.
doesn't mean that one day you will
Right.
wake up and your debts are gone. It's never going to go.
Right.
It's going to get worse.
You have to do something about it. You have to take action. But in order to do that, and the Lord says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Sometimes that truth is it's a very
It's
hurtful,
hard.
it's a hard truth. It's a hard pill to swallow.
It's hard.
But we have to look at those things. And also, I love this too because yes, we're dealing with the pragmatic ways we can start to deal with our wealth. But I mean, sometimes a lot of the application is looking at it and saying, okay, okay, what am I
Mm-hmm.
going to do about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then to believe that it's possible to get out of that situation. So let's talk about that. So now that we've addressed what we're looking at, we have some of the okay, we see the trauma. How do we then get out of that trauma?
So one of the things I tell my clients is I want you to think about this and just visualize that I'm
Mm.
trapped in this room and the doors are locked and it's so dark and I'm so scared and I just sit in a corner and I don't want to move because I'm not sure what's going to happen. But think about it and visualize that you get up from where you're sitting and you walk towards that door, even though you're scared, even though you don't know what's outside. You're not going to say that there's a lion outside and not go out. So you take that step, head to the door, and then open the door. And guess what? It is just the room you're in that is dark. There's light outside. And you open the door and light floods in. That's what it's like. So you want to sit down with your finances. I call it your money secret place. You want to have your money secret place in your home where you sit down and open your statements. And I do that with some of my clients. We go
So
through it
good.
together,
Please, please. No, no, I have
or
something to add
you
too.
do it by yourself. You sit down and just breathe, breathe. And I like to ask, what's the worst that can happen?
Right, right,
Nothing. Now you know.
right,
Now you know you cannot heal something that you don't know is sick.
right.
So the first thing we do is we sit down with it and we make a list of every single thing. Now
Right,
we know. So I want you to know this is my current situation.
right, right. This is so good, right? So a lot of things I heard there is that basically we have to make sure we face the trauma head on to see what's going on, and then from that we can move forward.
Yes.
Um, and one thing, of course, what we have to talk about too is just making sure we can digest that. But also, okay, so now you talk about getting into the light. So
Mhm.
what does that light look like? Is it you saying, okay, this is my vision? The word says, without a vision, the
The
people
people
perish. But of course,
perish.
the inverse of that, with the vision, people flourish. So is it now then looking at the vision and where they want to get? What does that look
So now this allows you to dream again because now you have a whole picture, you know where you're at, and you can dream again. So we sit down and we dream again together.
like? Yes.
Where do you want to go to? And I'm not asking you of what you taught yesterday or last year. What was your dream so many years ago?
Hmm.
What was your vision? Because you know how we have dreams, we have visions, and over the years, life happens, life
Right,
is life
right,
in,
right, right.
and we drop all those dreams
I
and we're
said that
like,
last
it's
week. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gone, it's dead, I'm
Life,
not,
your
it's
life.
never gonna
Right,
happen.
right,
But now you can dream again. So we sit down and we have a financial blueprint, a financial
right,
goal.
right.
Where do we want to get to?
Okay.
And once I know where you want to get to,
Hmm.
we put a plan on how to get there.
And how does that plan look? Is it them saying steps they want to do? Things? How does that look?
So it's not the same for everybody. I always say it's custom fit for each person
Yes.
is different. Your
Good.
journey
Good.
is different.
Good.
How you got to where you are is different. The traumas you faced are different. Some might not necessarily have traumas, but they don't know how to navigate the journey.
Hmm.
So at that point, we sit down based on your need and we have a plan. But if you're watching, the simple thing I want you to do is sit down with yourself and have a financial plan. And I want you to break it down. What's my short-term goals? What's my medium term goals and my long term goals financially, and ask yourself, do I know my fin number? Do I know my financial independence number? That's going to help you. What that simply means is for you to truly be financially free, there's an amount you need to have. Do you know what that? I'm not saying you're going to have it right now, but know what that number is so that when you're dreaming, when you're putting the plan, when you're writing down the vision, you know what it is.
And also, here's the thing too, and then we talked about it too with the opportunities. Of course, this verse is so quintessential to make sure we start dreaming and also working with God during this process. And I want to make sure we actually have a couple questions before we wrap up here.
Okay.
Um, asking you shall receive. So with this process, and I'm sure you do it with your clients. Do you pray with your clients as well? Perfect.
Sometimes, yeah.
If they want, right?
Yeah,
And
if
say
they want.
if they want. So we get a chance, you know, to put these. So I think it's almost like a come to Jesus moment with some of the things we faced.
Mhm.
We put it before Jesus and say, Lord, I want to get there. How do I get there? And the Lord is so gracious. I read this in James yesterday. He is willing to give us wisdom, but we
Mhm.
can't be double minded. We
Mhm.
can't try to find that wisdom in Him and try to find wisdom in the world. And so many times
True.
we try to do this. We say, okay, well, I know I want to do this, Lord, but I'm not going to wait because I want to do that.
Mhm.
And that's not going to help. All right. So this is a snippet of what we're going to do because I know we can have a much more in-depth conversation. We're going to do a couple of smaller bite-sized versions of this conversation so we can make sure we put it out to the people. But make sure you get a chance to follow Patience. She is amazing. You see her heart. You see how she shines when she talks about this. She is making a difference in the community that we need. Really quickly before we go, any last words or anything, and how can people find you? Any last words and how can people find you?
So, what I would want to say is when it comes to your finances, I want you to think long term.
Mhm.
How would the decisions or choices I'm making right now impact me in the next 5 years, impact my family? If you're married, you're thinking about your kids and the future. How would what we do right now impact us in the next 5 years? Would it take us closer to our goal or push us far away from it?
Mhm.
That's what you want to think about, okay? And you want to think more assets than liability. I
Right.
know where we're coming from. We think liabilities, we don't even know that they're liabilities. Liabilities is just basically what takes money away from you, and assets puts money in your pocket. So begin to think assets. And it doesn't have to be something big. Just start from where you are. Okay?
Awesome. All right.
And
So we see you guys next time. And also, they can find you where?
it's Wealth Builder Systems. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok at Wealth Builder Systems.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next time. God bless. We love you.
Thank you.